Ashtoreth. Now, Ashtoreth was the wife or the consort of Baal, but she appears all over. In Babylon, she was called Ishtar. In Sumer, Inanna. In Phoenicia, she was called Astarte. In Greece, she was called Aphrodite. She's the goddess of unbridled sexuality. She was a prostitute, a harlot goddess. In ancient times, she sexualized pagan culture. So the Bible says Baal and then Ashtoreth. So the same thing happened in the return. First, we began turning away from God, and then what happened? What would we expect to happen? We'd expect the realm of sexuality to be overturned. That's exactly what happened. Right after we begin turning from God, we have the sexual revolution, which is the transformation of sexuality from a Judeo-Christian groundwork to a pagan one. It's the work of this principality. And that is to overturn a nation, paganize it through the realm of sexuality, of marriage, of ultimately gender. A prostitute takes sexuality out of marriage and brings it into the culture. In ancient times, that's what she did. It was all in the temple. Sexuality was everywhere. So what happens to America? Sexuality was taken out of marriage, put into the culture, put into the marketplace. She's sexualized our culture. She's sexualizing our children. And it's happening to this day. And a prostitute also weakens marriage. So that's exactly what we've seen at the same time. It's no accident, because we've watched the weakening of marriage, the weakening of family, the breaking of marriage in America. In ancient times, in Greek, she was called the sacred prostitute. But in Greek, the word for her, for prostitute, was the word porne, from which we get the word porn or pornography. No accident. The first pornography in the world was the literature of this goddess. She was the inventor of it. So this is one who seduces a culture. Now, there's so much more to it we can't get into in the time we have, but just to mention, it's no accident she was also the goddess of the occult, or casting spells. At the same time, in the 60s, you have the sexual revolution, you have a revival of the occult. To the point right now, in America, there are more witches in America than there are Presbyterians. The revival. She is also linked to drugs and linked to intoxication. We won't go into it. We got to move on to the next of the dark trinity. This one in the book is called the Destroyer. This is the principality that causes parents to offer up their own children as sacrifices. The pagan world was filled with human sacrifice, child sacrifice. If you were a child in pagan times, it was not safe to be a child. They would be abused, they would be sexualized, they would be enslaved, and they would be offered up. When Israel turned away from God, they begin offering up their own children. And the only thing that ended child sacrifice in the world, you know what it was? It was the gospel. It was the name of Jesus. That tells you how right your faith is. But the ancient warning is, if a nation ever turns away from God, the spirits will come back. And so the destroyer, known in Hebrew as Molech.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, so I caught some of that. I heard about the sexuality and stuff. So do you have any thoughts?
Yes. Just a second.
Yeah.
Okay. You called me trying to send a message to my wife telling her to please get control of the dogs because they're beating my door down, and I'm not going to do much noise correction on this podcast. So, yeah. So I the goddess of excuse me, sexuality, porne. First of all, I would recommend anyone should probably check his facts of things that he's saying and he isn't going into, because someone this wrong about any number of his interpretations is probably also equally wrong about his facts. But that said, I'm taking them as read, and I'm not going back to question any of the facts per se, except this idea that somehow we have become more sexualized today, and that back in the good old days, sexuality was, one man and one woman in marriage. Actually, what the good old days was that a father could rape his daughter in the missionary position. That was good old Christian sexuality. That's it, and then no one would talk about it. That's the glory days of sexuality. There was never any glory days where we were somehow less sexual and less promiscuous than we are today. And I think it's a fantasy, a lie. Maybe it's misguided. But if you talk to the people who were there, and you just look back a little bit in history, sexuality was always rampant. It was always out there. It was always crazy. The only difference now that I would say, if there's a difference at all, is that it's public and we can see it. But before, it was private, and so we pretended that it didn't happen.
Well, in the context of like ancient cultures like the Greeks and the Romans, they weren't really private about it. They were very public. Like they would have public orgies and things like that.
I was just
You know,
thinking
just
about
be like,
America.
yes,
that
America,
context.
but like, yes, but like, I think the point he's making is that when a culture like loses their sense of who God is, they start trending towards sexual immorality.
And what I'm saying is, even when the culture, quote unquote, does know who God is, sexuality is still rampant.
Yeah, sexual immorality still exists, but like it's not like celebrated.
Right.
Like
It's
being
hidden away.
adulterous.
It's hidden away, and people suffer more from it. Look at Catholic priest scandals. Back in a time when people couldn't talk about such things, and that's why so much of it comes out now as opposed to then. It's not like it wasn't happening then. It was happening then. We're finding out about it because we couldn't talk about it. Now we have permission to talk about it. It wasn't different though. Once again, you look at the parents diddling their kids. That was pretty common. And it was always common. In fact, I would say it's more common because kids couldn't talk about it. And if they did talk about it, nobody believed them. Society shut their ears to that sort of thing, but it was always going on. Mistresses, the rich and powerful have always had mistresses, so much that we have a name for it. Mistresses, we call them. In the Old Testament, they had concubines. They had a name for it. It was so common. There was never a time when there wasn't what you would call sexual immorality, even when Christians were in their quote unquote glory days.
Yeah,
Never a time when sexuality was
talking
different.
about the public celebration of it. So like, yeah, people were still doing these wrong things, but they could say, well, yeah, that's wrong. But these days, like a big example I would say would be adultery or fornication. People are like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, but
right?
they didn't consider it wrong in Judaism either. The
Fornication?
the powerful could have as many wives as they wanted, or girlfriends, concubines as they wanted. There was absolutely nothing wrong with that. That was always true. And so you say, oh, well, we celebrated it today. They celebrated it then.
Adultery, you're saying?
Well, I'm saying that that sex outside of one woman and one man was so common in the culture that it is hard to imagine what adultery meant. One of the most famous acts of God is to create the tribe of Israel. And how did he do it? He did it by blessing a polygamous marriage of Jacob with his two wives. And as the Bible narrates the story, God would allow one wife to get pregnant and keep the other. And then at another time, he would allow the other wife to get pregnant and not the other. He used these two women married to this one man to bring about his sacred and, dare I say, pure people. That's how it was done. It was so common. That's how it was done. What does adultery even mean under a system like that? And so, it's just that religious people had different tolerances for it, different words for it. And we look back on it today, we talk about this as if there was a time when oh, well, that was wrong and we didn't talk about it. And that was a thing that, we strive not to do. It was never that. Even in America, the powerful have always had mistresses. We can't have multiple wives, but we have as many multiple sex partners as we wanted to. The elders always diddled the unmarried and sometimes married people in the church. This has always, always, always been the case. And there was never a time when it wasn't. And so even this idea that we somehow celebrate it today and, they didn't celebrate it then, I think is just not true. It was just contextualized in another way back then, but we all knew about it.
Well, no, because again, even let's go with presidential candidates. The last three Democratic. I'm going with Biden, Clinton, and Obama. Like, there's footage of them saying marriage is between one man and one woman. Now, this is not even that long ago. This is less than 20 years.
Well, right, because
but
that's our laws.
no, it was like they weren't saying it because it was the law. They were saying it because that was their personal conviction. And what's happened is that that's changed now, right? And now it's not between marriage is whatever you want it to be, right? And so that has definitely changed. That there's been a revolution in that department. It's not that people weren't being it's not that people weren't having gay sex before. It's
Oh,
that
you're talking about gay
something
marriage. Yeah. Okay.
gay. Yeah.
I think that
Well,
Trump was in favor of gay marriage. I don't know
yeah.
what. So,
He was true, yeah, but like I don't know, I don't keep up with
I
what
mean,
he says and doesn't say.
lots of people have been in favor of gay marriage for a long time, but I would say even in the gay community, for most of the time that I've been alive, even gay people weren't pushing for marriage because it was impossible. They were just pushing for relation, a relationship that they could have with their partner and they could, rent an apartment together and live in peace. They were just looking for peace. They weren't even looking for marriage in that sense. So
That's like, again, that's part of the incrementalism that happens in the government, where people are saying, "Oh, we only want this," but like it's like trying to get your end goal is to get the thing, but you're not going to ask for the thing outright. You're
no,
just
I
going
don't
to
think
say,
so.
"Give me this."
I mean, that's true sometimes. So let me back up. That is true sometimes, but in the case of things like gay marriage,
It-
in fact, we could even leave gay marriage and talk about it in the case of things like racially integrated schools. The goal was not racially integrated schools when it started. The goal was we've got this huge mismatch of education where the white kids who go to the white schools get good books, good teachers, modern material, and they get a decent education. And then the black kids get hand-me-down books from, 20 years ago. And, the white kids have a good classroom. The black kids don't have a good classroom. The situation for education is different. And so at the beginning, they were not pushing for integrated schools. They were just pushing for our kids need reasonable education. So it was kind of an innovation to say even we want equal education. But even the push for equal education was not a push for integration. The argument of separate but equal is not what was being challenged. Who was it? Thurgood Marshall. He was not challenging separate but equal initially. He was just saying we need equal, right? Separate but equal is fine, but we don't have equal. And it was, if I recall correctly, a judge who said you can't have equal with separate, because separate is necessarily equal. And so if what you're really pressing for is equal, you've got to go back and refactor it, and you've got to argue against separate. And so he did. And at that point, we began to see the fallacy of separate but equal, that in order to have equal, you actually couldn't be separate, because there would always be an inherent inequality if you were separated. This is just an example. I'm not trying to get deep in American history. I'm just giving you an example of what you're calling incrementalism. Nobody at the time was thinking, oh, what we need is integrated schools. That just became the natural consequence of dealing with some of these issues. In an oppressed people, it's often that way. And so we get back to gay marriage. Gay people were not looking for marriage. They were just looking to not be, killed. They were trying to avoid persecution, if you will. But at some point, it became apparent that if you were going to live together in some kind of domestic situation, and yet we're still going to be able to discriminate you, because if you're gay, your partner cannot go see you in the hospital. And if you're not gay, you can get married and your partner can go see you in the hospital. I think they would have been happy with your partner can see you in a hospital. I think they would have been happy with you can use your partner's insurance. You can, as the way a married couple could, but they couldn't. And so the only way they could get some of these rights was to push for marriage. That was the only thing there, and society wouldn't let them do the thing that they were trying to do. That's how we got there.
No, because again, like even with what the UMC did this week, it's not like oh, we only just want health benefits. It's we want to redefine what marriage is, and it's still being redefined, like in a secular context. Like there is no definition of marriage that you could ask a secular person.
No doubt. I perfectly agree with that. But what I'm saying is that's not where it started. It didn't start with some sinister plan to end up here.
It did, and that's definitely a discussion for a future show where we can go over literally how it started and how did how did we go from having no Pride Month to having a full month.
Yeah, bring it on, buddy. I'll be glad to kick your shiny metal ass on that one.
That didn't happen because college kids were protesting. That happened because there was a concerted effort by people who had lots of money and lots of influence to make sure that became a reality.
Okay. So what American I'm requesting culture is that when we do Gay Week, I want to do a panel. I want to do a show. That's going to be a show. So
yeah, could do it even in June if you want. Just to be in theme. But like the point is this: it didn't happen organically. It was very those machines. There's a machine behind it.
I think there's like I said, sometimes it's that way. For instance, the overturning of Roe versus Wade that was always the goal. And it was a concerted effort, since the 70s by the Republicans. And so they did it. They weren't looking for incrementalism at all. They were always looking for that. And so they were very strategic, and they won their smaller victories where they could to always get to the place where they are now. So I would say that in that case, there was definitely a conclusion that they were trying to get to. They weren't trying to win a little bit of fight here or a little fight there.
Everyone is always trying to win small battles to get the eventual goal.
Well, but I think that for a lot of, especially in oppressed people, they're not thinking about an eventual goal. They're just trying to not be oppressed. And sometimes the only way to not be oppressed is to go all the way there. And that's not what they were thinking. I mean, America, who found themselves oppressed, because they had to pay a tax. Maybe if the British were a little bit more forward thinking, would have allowed the Americans to be, part of the system of lords. And, they could have had representation and we would still be British today. But the Brits didn't do that. And so Americans decided, you know what, screw you. We're going to be our own people. That probably wasn't the original intent. They were happy enough being British. They were just being British unfairly.
Yeah, and again, it's not one size fits all. Like obviously there's situations like that, but I'm like saying like specific situations, we're gonna try and be incremental about it until we get to this goal that we want. And part of, again, back to the gay community was, again, even we see it with like the flag, right? Like it's still evolving. Like I saw there's a new rendition of it now.
Well, right, but you see, I think
And
that
it's
you're talking
incremental.
about modern incarnations of it, and so yeah, we are at that point where these things always get to, which is in order to get the equality, you've got to go all the way.
Right.
And
So
so
it didn't
once
start. It
you
didn't.
get there, of course, your effort is going to be to go all the way there at that point. That's just not where it started.
Yeah, it started with people saying, what happens in my bedroom is none of your business. But the thing is, when people were saying that, other people were saying, wait a minute, that's not all you want. Come on, that's not it. And people were saying, no, no, that's really what we want.
I
And
think
it's like,
that for
no, that's not what you
for
want.
most gays, what they wanted was health benefits and to see their loved ones in the hospital.
Yeah, but then it's become this whole big thing
Right,
now.
but if
Yeah,
they had gotten the health benefits and the ability to see their loved ones in the hospital, it may
but
have
it didn't.
always come to this point, but it would have been much later. They were pressed to go all the way because there was no incremental compromise.
No, it's always been incremental in the sense of like, okay, we want these things. Okay, basic rights. All right, great. Have them. And it's like, no, actually, we want a month. Okay, cool. All right, now we want a flag. All right, here we go. Let's change the acronym. All right, now we want it in schools. Now we want
Yeah, no, you see,
whatever it
I
is.
think
And
that
it keeps going like that because again, that's how cultures are shaped and
I think
formed.
you're conflating a lot of things. But that said, this will be a good conversation in June, and I think for the moment, we should probably call it right here for
Yes,
today.
for today.
And
Wait, did he finish making his point?
you know what? There's going to be
Um,
plenty of time for him to make his point.
okay. All right.
He's just look at the meter. We're not even halfway through. He's going to make his point.
Oh, we're about halfway. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I promise after the end of this, we will go back and do an after show where he sells his books. Not today because I don't want to lose my place here. But is there anything in this video so far that you think that we haven't touched on well?
I think just the fact that he's very confident about what he's saying.
Yeah. That's part of
Like
what
he
makes him a good
has
speaker, though.
no, it's not even how he's presenting his material. It's just that he's relaying these patterns that he's seeing. Like he's like it's like he's talking at what I'm trying to say is like he's just too confident for the stuff he's presenting.
Right.
Like
Now, I understand that. He exudes
and
confidence, and people are attracted to confidence. They're not attracted to truth. They're attracted to
no, 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 no,
confidence.
no, no, it's not even that. No, I'm not. Again, I'm not like he could be the least charismatic person. It's not that he's like presenting it in a certain way. It's that the way he's saying it like, okay, this is how it is. He's not saying perhaps you could see it this way, or you could also see it like, like how you could say, okay, you see like in the Bible, people worshipped these bull figures. So could it be that the fact that people are erecting statues like this, could there be a pattern there? He's not talking
Right.
like that.
He's not
He's
applying any
saying,
epistemic humility in a situation where
wait,
epistemic
it
humility is required.
necessitates,
Yeah.
yeah, you require it. And he's saying, this is what it means. It's like,
Right.
and this is the truth. I don't care if you don't like it or not.
See, and in
Um,
religion, I found that a lot as well. I fit, put this guy aside. Uh, I found that one of the ways that certain types of preachers were able to attract certain types of audiences
big crowds.
was to in fact uh, be confident in places where they should have applied epistemic humility. But this is what I was saying before. People like confidence. Christianity didn't grow to be what it is because people went around saying, maybe Jesus rose. That's not that doesn't build
That's
you
exactly how it grew. Well, it wasn't people were like unsure. People
right.
knew.
This is what I mean though, and so it's because people knew to the point that they were willing to risk their lives for the idea. I would
Yeah, but this
caution
guy
people.
wouldn't risk his life for this stuff that he's saying.
Yeah,
I
well,
don't think he would.
I doubt he would too. But I'm just saying it. The reason a movement grows is because you have people with that lack of epistemic humility and that level of confidence that they're willing to die for the proposition. And so this is a thing that I actually find problematic with religion in general, because I think religion in general requires way more epistemic humility. Even if some of the thing, even if spirituality were true and real, we don't have ways to back it up with the kind of confidence that people talk about. And before you call me a hypocrite, I think that many atheists, I'm on record as saying I think that atheists have the potential of being way crazier than Christians, believe things with the same kind of maniacal confidence that Christians do. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous on both sides. Even if you happen to be right, I think that kind of confidence in areas where the confidence is not um, suitable is detrimental. So it's one of the things that makes religion, whether it's political religion or religion, it's one of the things that makes it so dangerous. Because when you are so sure, for instance, that an election has been stolen, you can be motivated to storm the Capitol and bring a noose to hang people. That's what you can do when your confidence rises above what the circumstances calls for. So
Um,
that'll be my
no,
closing statement.
I don't want to. I want to just push back a little bit and say that Christianity is the one religion where it's not the case, where uh, people were going around telling other people something happened that they knew was false. So like Islam, for example, uh, they were spreading a philosophy, a way of life,
Mm-mm.
an ideology, which all humans, every single culture that's branched out from the Americans to the Europeans, Romans, all of them, like they've gone and been like, okay, you guys need to stop living like this, or we'll make you stop living like this. Whereas Christianity is different than all the rest.
Oh, come on. We swept the savages away with some of the most brutality the world has ever known.
That
Uh,
wasn't because of Christianity, that was
uh,
because of conquest.
well, it was in fact motivated by their idea of Christianity.
It was not.
It
um,
was.
uh, no, no, historically they were just, s- discovering the new world, and then they didn't even have right maps and ended up in the wrong end thought.
Right. You've
But
heard the
the thing is,
expression "saving the savages," right? This is not
well,
something that is a new
again, that's
idea.
not politically correct for our uh like our ears. The word savages is not politically correct.
Right, but
Same.
that's what they were thinking, and they went and they evangelized, not just with a Bible, but with the sword and with the force of government
With
and
us. Well, I,
with the intention of annihilating a culture. Any culture that, for instance, worship other gods, had other ideas about that.
oh, you're talking about like annihilating their practices in the sense of, I thought you meant like killing.
I mean,
What I mean is
annihilating
this.
their complete cultural identity, which is
Yeah, but
one
like
definition of genocide.
if a culture practices cannibalism and it's like you go visit them and you're like, are you just gonna be like, okay, you guys have your own cultural identity. I'm gonna respect that because that's what you've been doing. Is that like the secular perspective that you have?
I think that's a
Um,
hard question, and so I'm going to apply some philosophical humility here. I'm going to actually say I think it depends on your intentions, and I'm not even sure what the right intention is. So let's say that you go to a village, you're just exploring, you're not intending to conquer or anything like that, and you find this village and they practice cannibalism. Okay, that is disturbing. That's very disturbing. So what do you do? Do you stop them? Do you take over their culture? Do you use Christianity to end their culture? Now, one of the things you can do if you do Christianity right, and if it actually was the power of God to save, people would be converted, and they would voluntarily stop eating people. But that's
that's
not.
happened.
But that's not really what we're talking about. So,
That's what I'm talking about.
do you then force by law? Do you take over that culture and then pass a law that says cannibalism is wrong?
No, you
Do
let the
you
people
do
themselves
you lock up
decide.
the people who are cannibalized once you take it over and you put them in jail or you kill them for murder or whatever? You
Well,
this is
that's a big issue. But then it's like, okay, but the point is this: you don't want cannibalism.
okay, but let me just because I'm trying to help you out a little bit.
No,
Uh,
you're not.
I am.
Okay.
I'm trying to show you that I am actually somewhat ambivalent about what the right answer is. I mean, there are a lot of options in front of us. So even as a secularist, forget Christian, as a secularist, I don't actually know if the right thing to do would be to go in with the force of law and stop the cannibalism. I
And
don't
I think
I don't know
that's
that it is.
where,
It might be. Well, I'm not. I can't be wrong because I'm saying I don't know. So
yeah, saying you don't know is a wrong answer.
no, it's not a right. It's not a wrong answer. I literally don't know. So all you can say is you are more confident than I am. Now, what do I think right now? If I had to just give an answer, well, I grew up in a certain way at a certain time. Certain neurons fire in my brain in a certain way, and so this is not going to make either side happy. But I tend to be more hawkish than dovish uh, in such matters. And so I would say that if you believe that this thing is going on in a way that destroys human rights enough for you to get involved with, because I'm not entirely sure you should get involved. Maybe you should say those people will be whacked and we're just going to leave them alone. But if you are not going to say that, then what you have to do is go in with an army, take over that land, plant your flag, and then pass new laws. I think that you either go all the way or you go home. I don't know
And
what
that's
you
the
I don't know
moral
what you
thing.
I don't know what you're doing if
But
you're
like
not going all the way to change it and fix it. And so that is my
that's
hawkish
the
nature.
secular way of doing things. Yes, that's the secular way of doing things.
Well,
That's
I
not the
think
Christian. The
I'd have probably
Christian
given you
way.
the answer to that even as a Christian. So
No, I don't know. Like invade and force them to stop. But
yes,
like
because
once
they're eating
it's
people.
like it's like
You
but
know,
then it's
they're
like you're not helping them. Like
I
it's
kn-
like when
well,
you teach
you're
a kid
destroying
how
their
to do
culture, but you are helping
math.
them not get eaten.
like giving them an answer key and you haven't showed them how to solve the problem,
Right,
the
I
math
understand
problem.
that, but sometimes you got to give the answer key and then teach them how to pass the test.
Yeah,
you know,
that's how you cheat. That's how you actually, that's actually how you fail.
y-
You gotta be able to be like, okay, let's pull out the times tables and start 2 times 1, 2 times 2, and then you work your way up to long division,
okay, so
and then
you're
eventually,
visiting. So you Mac, you're visiting the place, and you're on expedition. You're touring because you're just that kind of adventurous person. You walk into this village, and they're munching on the former elder, and they offer you a bit of the spleen because that'd be some good eating. Elder spleen, good eating. They're honoring you with that. So I'm gonna assume that you are going to turn down the honor in the gentlest way possible because I hear young man spleen is pretty good too. Um, so what are you gonna do? Are you going to try to at that point have some kind of Bible study with them and teach them that eating people is wrong? Are you going to try to convince them that it's wrong? Are you going to just kind of bow out and then leave and come back with a bigger party and then try
I
to
mean,
negotiate them? Yeah, okay. So
well, again, it's like there's no way for
what are
me
you gonna
to
do?
control the variables. Like I could show up there and they could be like, you look like you could make a good Thanksgiving dinner. But like the thing is, uh, what you would do is you would like, again, as a Christian, is that you would teach them if it was possible, and that's the hope that you go with there, that human beings are not just like other animals that you cut up and you eat, because human beings are created in the image of God and they have dignity and they have rights that are given to them not by other people but by God Himself. And so eating other human beings, killing them and then eating them, first of all, like you've got two things going on there that are wrong. But the thing is, like, from a secular perspective, I wouldn't have an issue with cannibalism because, like, you could either be dovish about it, be like, hey, that's how the neurons for those people are firing in their brains, and that's what the chemicals in their brain are telling them is right. So I'm just gonna go back to America. Just leave the tribal people be the tribal people. And for me, like when I consider secularism and I think about stuff like that, there's no reason for a person who is secular to be altruistic, because altruistic means you're betting against yourself. You're saying, I don't like myself enough, because I know this is the only life I have, to go out there and help other human beings with the knowledge that it could even cost me my life, because my life is the most valuable thing I have. So within a secularist framework, you have a selfish gene of self-preservation, and that self-preservation doesn't extend past your current line of reference. But Christianity flips all of that and says your life is not actually the most valuable thing. You should love your neighbors. You should pray for your enemies, even when they're persecuting you. That's the pristine Christianity that needs to come back to America if it was ever
So
here
by
in that form.
persecuting you, that means they've got you strapped to the table. You're still alive, and they're munching on your spleen. All right, all right. I mean, I guess all you have to do is one selfless act of praying for somebody at that point. But
Well,
you
going to
just
heaven in a few minutes.
yeah.
So,
So I'm just saying, if you're saying that my impulse to take an army and overtake the place is wrong, but I'm just trying to figure out what your workflow is that would be any better than mine
the same
for
workflow,
that situation.
the same workflow that kind of like just made sure like America became somehow, well, wait, not America. That's not even the best.
No, it's a
China.
great example because we
I guess
came, we saw the
okay,
savages, we stole their land, and then we killed
but
them.
they weren't doing it for Christian purposes. I'm trying to think of a culture that's like truly
I
secular.
don't know. We were the New Jerusalem, and God bless America. In fact, if you consider the Old Jerusalem, how did they get their land? They went to a land, they drove people out, they killed them, and now it's their land. God gave it to us, you see.
That
God gave us
that's
America.
not the same thing.
Kind of the
That's a
same thing.
different argument. It's a different argument because with the Canaanites, they were like they were being judged like for centuries of sin, and later on in the narrative the Israelites themselves, they get kicked out of the land, so it's not like God is playing
Right, but
favorites
that's
with
a
the
religious
Israelites.
story. That's a religious story from a
but
secular
but but
point
again,
of view. They
if
went
you're
in
going again but
and
if you're
kicked
going
some
to
people out of the
critique
land.
if you're going to critique the story, you have to see the whole story. You can't just say like, "Oh, God was playing favorites with the Israelites," but because God also kicked out the Israelites for doing the same thing.
Right,
So it wasn't like,
and
"You guys are my
one day
boys."
America may lose the land, and we
It
might
may happen. Okay.
tell a religious story. But I don't care about the religious story. I'm just looking at the secular history of what happened.
All right. Well,
And so,
there's only history, right?
well,
There's no Christian history, there's no secular history. All right,
well,
the history of it is this, all right? Like uh Americans came here and there were people already living here, right? And the people living here had already kicked out other people who were also living here, right? So the secular history of it is that there was nothing evil that the new Americans did by kicking out the Native Americans who had also kicked out the people who lived here. So it's just the natural flow. That's the sociology of the universe, right?
hey, I've
Survival.
made that argument on the show a number of times. It is the natural uh, it is the natural
Cycle.
evolution and consequence and cycle, yes, of being human.
Right,
This is
right. So
how
it's not
nations
evil.
become sovereign. Well,
Yeah, it's
but
not evil.
you can either stay in the Christian story or you can step out of the
No,
Christian
I'm
story.
just
But
saying I'm sticking
you're
by
trying to
no,
do.
I'm saying if I was an atheist, I like right, and I would say it's not evil what they did because that's just how the world is. It's not
Well,
like
but
if an
well,
asteroid strikes another planet, I'm gonna be like, hey, that's you can't do that.
okay, but
No, because that's how the universe
I have
is.
made this case. I have made this case before. I don't mind making it again. I didn't make any friends when I made it before. The reason I don't get all that fussed over the treatment of Americans with Native Americans is because this is how this cycle works. It worked for the Native Americans who were here and the people before that. It worked. That's how it always works. This is how you become a sovereign nation. If you don't kick some people out of your land, you ain't sovereign and you ain't no nation. That's it. Every nation that has become a nation did so by the point of a sword because they
Yeah,
had a
but then
bigger army. They took a piece of land and they developed an army big enough to defend it. That's how you got there. There's
yeah, so
no
then
other
I
way to
don't
get
get
there.
the people who are like on the boards all the time talking about the Canaanites because like it's fine by your worldview. Like why you like maybe
I don't
I'm
even know what I'm
dumb.
saying. It's fine. It's just evolution. It's just the way it works. So yes,
Right. So why are you calling it evil?
be- it only becomes evil when you insert religion into it, when you insert a god into it, because now they're saying we didn't just do a natural thing and take some land and get a big enough army to hold it. No, God gave us that land, and so He's the one who told us to go in and gank those people.
And then they
That's kind
got
of how the
taken out.
Christian story works. It's kind of how the American story works. When we insert God into it, then we're telling a
But
different story, and
even
there
the
is a different
insertion,
expectation.
even the insertion has to be natural, right? Because it's not like the insertion based purely on a materialistic understanding of the universe. The insertion is also natural. So even if someone says, the only reason I murdered someone was because a voice in my head told me to do it. Like that's grotesque. That's awful. But that's natural, right? Based on how the world works and
Yes,
mental illness and all those things.
yes, it's
And the
perfectly
thing
natural.
is then that atheists are in the position where they can't use the word evil and they can't categorize things as evil. And that's just not That doesn't
Well,
cohere
yeah, that's not
with
true
reality.
because colloquially we can. I won't re litigate that at this time, but yeah, we can
Okay.
use that. And we do know exactly what we mean when we say it, and you know exactly what we mean when we say
I
it,
know
and
what you
so
mean because
that's
we're in the same reality. It's
right.
not like, yeah.
So this is, we know language, we know words. If we didn't know language, we wouldn't be able to do a podcast together, and we could do a good podcast together. So you know what I mean. I know what you mean. We just have to have a little bit of philosophical charity when we're using words that are religiously or politically charged to understand what the other means. So there's no need of renegotiating that. I think that we insert a different kind of evil, a religious sense of evil in immorality, when we try to insert a moral God into the picture. There's nothing evil about cancer. I would never
Oh,
say that cancer is evil. However, if what you tell me is a story that says, oh, but cancer is a result of sin and God gave that person cancer because that person sinned, now I'm going to talk about evil. All right. That's a different thing. Same cancer, but it's a different story once you insert a God into it.
but like, here's a different perspective because you're taking the pessimistic route where it's like, okay, God gave that person cancer or gave them this or allowed for this to happen or things like that. But you're not seeing the bigger picture that if someone is entrusting themselves to that God, then, and this same God has promised another reality where that stuff won't exist, then the worst things that happen in this world are just, including death, which is the worst thing for everyone, right? Even that has gone its sting taken away. So when someone trusts in that God, like the story of Abraham and Isaac, which I think a lot of people just don't understand it because what God asked Abraham to do is outrageous. And some people just take it like, oh, like you're supposed to give everything that you have. But like God asked him to do something that was going to affect him psychologically, mentally, emotionally, and everything. And he had 3 days to change his mind before he got to where he was told to go. And the theme, the story of Christianity is that God himself can and does ask of his creatures to do things that we may not fully understand, with the hope that if we trust him, that he vindicates our trust in him. Not that we, by our wisdom, are able to reason and come, like we can never sit at the same table as an all-knowing God and come to the same conclusions. It's like you can't teach your dog how to do a podcast. Like you'll just annoy the
What are you
dog.
talking about? My
You'll
my dog is
you'll
on
annoy
every
your son.
podcast I
Like they'll
do.
always, yeah, but uh, can he like get you subscribers,
I think
Um,
so. I've watched many people doing videos where they have cats going through the scenes.
just meowing.
I guarantee you those people have more subscribers because of it.
Yeah. But the point is this, like, just I always think about intelligence gaps. Like even like we have what 99% of our DNA with apes. And it's like we're so much smarter than those things. But in another sense, we're also not all that smart. And so like when I consider like, okay, a human being, the average human being who went to college and is like in the is in the middle of their life, that person is smart. But like, once you put in a being that's been around for eternity, how are you going to tell that being what to do or tell them that you know a better way? So if you're talking about epistemic humility, yes, Mr. Jonathan, who is doing his series, should have epistemic humility, but so should everyone else on the planet. So it's not just that we're picking on Jonathan. We also, everyone, should have epistemic humility
Yep.
and recognize that God himself calls us to that because that's the only way he can relate to us is by faith because we're not eternal. We're not omniscient. We're not all these other things. And so we must have faith. We must put our faith in God and trust in him that he knows what he's doing.
Right. So for different reasons, we agree on epistemic humility, which really kind of is the theme of this afterward part of the show. Thank you for the conversation. Epistemic. Okay. So here's the thing. There are things that I am pretty sure about that I have way more confidence in private than I do in public. And I think that's the right thing. I think that's the right stance. Because even if I think I'm pretty sure about a thing, I am still going to maybe err on the side of epistemic humility when I say it, in the event that I might be wrong. And so I still want to leave the door open to the possibility that I might be wrong. I've said, of course, many times, I don't believe in a God. In fact, I think the likelihood is so small that I should spend as much time worrying about a God as I spend worrying about Voldemort. I simply don't buy it. That said, I also don't know that there is anything in natural law that prohibits there being a God. And just because I think Christians have made a bad case for their God doesn't mean that a God couldn't be out there face palming every day. So,
If a God exists outside of the Christian God, I don't think that God particularly cares about us. I
right,
think in Christianity, you have a God who cares so much that he literally entered into the experience of his creation, his human beings that he
right.
made.
I
Whereas
understand
a
that you believe
God
that.
out there, no, well, I'm just explaining. Like, okay, it's not even okay. What I believe, it's okay. This is what Christianity is. So, like, if we were talking about another God out there, like in a Lovecraftian way, there's an alien civilization out there, and they know what human beings are doing all the time, and we could call such a being, maybe we could call him God. That person, whoever being, does not care enough about us because we are over here suffering, and he's just like they're just watching. They're like, okay, do your thing. And so it's not the same thing as what you find in Christianity, where you have a God who's intimately involved in the actions of his own people.
Right. And speaking back to epistemic humility, as I was saying, and maybe I wasn't clear enough, I leave it at a non-zero possibility that your God could exist.
Wait, non-zero. So that wait, I'm sorry, my brain is scrambling. So that means there's no possibility.
No, non-zero means that there's more than a zero possibility. So if it was zero chance, then I would be
Okay.
saying emphatically and dogmatically that your God couldn't exist. But I'm
Oh,
saying that there's
okay.
a non-zero possibility, which means there might be a 0.00001% that it exists. Um, I I don't know. I can't say. I don't know enough about the universe to say that God couldn't exist. And maybe if I were better at science, I could say that God doesn't exist. But I don't. There's too much about the universe that I don't know, and that I know that I'm never going to know
Never gonna know.
in my lifetime. People who come a couple of thousand years after me will know way more about the universe than I do now. And
Look like a
so
caveman. Yeah.
so with my particular set of information, a God could exist. Right? I still believe it's so unlikely that I don't need to spend any time worrying about it. But I do not actually say, and nor do I create my arguments in a way that says, I know that a God does not exist, because I don't.
That's interesting. I met people who say I know for a fact God doesn't exist.
No, I don't
Like
mind. I
like
don't
like
mind
um like
arguing.
um
I don't mind arguing hard atheism. I
well
think in my
like
heart, I
but
think
why
I
would you
probably,
argue something that you know is not true in your heart?
well, but I'm telling you, I don't know. And I can't say that it's not true. Uh, and so that's largely why I don't argue it. But I'm much
I
closer.
could
I'm much closer to hard atheism than I am, you know, pure agnosticism. And I can
it's
easily
still in the
argue.
same
I can
boat.
easily argue that there can't possibly be a God. I do that mostly as a mental exercise because it's
That
fun.
how's that help? That's not helpful to you though. If
it's
If you're like
it's a good
saying,
mental exercise. It's kind of like arguing for the tobacco companies to see how well you can
like,
understand an
I
issue
can
and argue
argue
it.
that Islam is true, but it'll just like
I don't
it's
think
just
you
gonna make
could.
me.
I don't think you could.
I actually could argue that it's true.
I don't think
I
you could do
could.
it.
I can do it. I can do it. But the thing is, like, if I do it enough, then what I'll find is that I'll start becoming like looking at life like a Muslim.
Right. So
And and
I don't like doing those arguments just for the sake of the entertainment value of it.
Mhm.
I'm telling you that I can. I have done it. When I do, I
But
generally
you
announce that
shouldn't
that's what I'm
do
doing
it
it.
just
But
to do it. Like I know,
my in my heart, what I'm I really don't think there's a God, and I really don't think there's any more of a God than there is a fairy under my bed.
but I think that's like
But
epistemic humility has to come in because it's like okay, the
and I'm
universe in
telling you,
itself.
I got it. I got the
Is,
epistemic humility that you think I have.
I don't think lots of everyone thinks they have epistemic humility.
I just
I'm saying
acknowledge
like
that your
we all
God could
need more
exist.
of it.
I don't think that we could. I don't think I can give you more epistemic humility than that.
How do you know your wife exists? How do you know you're not hallucinating her into existence?
Because she's made me lunch.
Or like, how do you know
It's
you're not
easy.
dreaming right now and you're
It
not
doesn't. I don't even care if I'm dreaming. I'm dreaming of a wife that
right?
made me
So we
lunch.
can always
That's existence
we
enough to
see
me for me.
no, you could be
That's
hallucinating all of that.
okay,
Hallucinations
that's what
exist.
I call existence. All right,
Like this
so
conversation couldn't even be happening right now. But the thing is,
I can't even hallucinate that a God exists. But that said, I
no, but
can't
like
I can't tell you for sure that one doesn't exist. And so all of my arguments that I make publicly and strongly are based on the idea usually that a God could exist. If you look at my arguments about Jesus, everybody knows that I am a mythicist. I don't believe that there was a guy. Forget there's a guy that, on which, these things were based. I don't think there was a guy. All right. I'm a reluctant mythicist. I would rather actually believe there's a guy. But every one of my arguments that I make are dependent not only of there being a guy, but that we can mostly take the things that are written down in the Gospels in red letters as things he said. And I argue based on that as a ground level set of facts that I
and
don't actually
you
hold.
are wrong on that. But the thing is that okay, if you're already like if that's what's setting the tone, then it's kind of like you've kind of calibrated the ruler in such a way that you're gonna get wrong measurements
But
down the road either
no,
way.
because it is a type of epistemic humility that says, but there could be a guy. There might have
It's
been a
not
guy.
epistemic humility to like go on the fringe and be like, no, I'm not like because mythicism is like it's a vast minority. Even secular
Doesn't
scholars
matter. It
don't
doesn't
think
matter. I
it's
understand it's a vast minority.
right, yeah, yeah. But that's the thing that it's
And
not.
I've
This
said many
guy,
times I would
right?
rather not be a mythicist. I would love to be wrong, but it doesn't matter whether
You
I ever.
are wrong.
It doesn't matter because I argue as if I were wrong. I argue factoring
So it's
in
mind
that
over
Jesus
matter.
was a real guy and that he
But that's
said
not what
these
you
things.
believe in your heart.
That's
You're
how.
just
But
it's like
that's.
if I come to you and I
But
tell you
I
next
don't
week,
let a dogmatic position
if I
affect the
come
way
to
I
you
argue.
next week and I tell you Muhammad was a true prophet, and I'm telling you like he was legit. He never it's like, yeah, I'm making the argument, but you know that I don't really believe what I'm telling you.
Okay, but
So
here's the thing
how
though. I don't know that
is
Muhammad
that?
was. So hang on. I don't know that Muhammad wasn't a true prophet of some God.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Oh, the fact that you're not a Muslim proves that if
No,
you thought
it
he
says
was
that I don't
legit,
positively believe it. What I just said is I don't know that he wasn't.
so that you could say that about anything then, right?
Of course you can, which
But
and you
but
probably should.
you shouldn't because then you end up into this. And actually, the guy, I'm going to give him his flowers. He pointed out one of the big things that's plaguing our culture is relativism, where it's like people are afraid of
Right,
planting
he's
their
wrong.
flag. No, he's not wrong.
He is
He's right.
wrong. He's
He's
wrong.
right.
I look. That was one of the
That's
places that
where
I thought about stopping, but I didn't.
the discourse has changed entirely.
Yeah,
Like
by the way,
completely.
he's wrong. And anybody, let me make this statement very clear. Anybody who is a truth relativist is also wrong. Reality is reality. All right. So the
The
idea that
reality
you
can
could
be whatever you want it to be,
no, it
right?
cannot be. No, it cannot be. That is not a
But that's
definition of.
what's
Hang on.
happening with.
Stop. That is not the definition of reality that anyone you're arguing with on the board has ever suggested. That is not what we
Just
think. That is a straw man of the position.
oh my
That
goodness.
is an utter straw man of the position. We absolutely believe that reality is real, that real things happen.
Mm-mm.
What we don't believe is that we know for certain what all reality entails. What is reality? What really happened? And so that's where relativity comes in. You saw a thing, and that's different from what I saw. But no matter what you saw or what I saw, a thing is true, and we could both be wrong, or one of us could be right, but we can't both be right. Now, that said, there is a such thing as relativism, if you will, in physics, as well you know.
Yes,
So there's
but
this kind of
that's
there's this famous thought experiment. Let me just pull this out because you're the one who pulled this string on relativism. I was about to go eat lunch, so this is on you, sir. There's this thought experiment where a dude is getting ready to sign a contract and they're on a train, and the only way that they would agree to sign the contract is if they signed at the same time. And so they're on the train together and they sign what for them is at the same time. However, an observer on a bench as the train is going by, that observer, because of the way time and light works, sees one person sign the contract first. Which one happened? Did they sign at the same time or did one sign before the other? The answer is yes.
right, and
That is
that's a good
absolutely
argument.
the truth of relativism. That is, in fact, correct. We have temporal relativism, which can be laid out very clearly in physics. We can see it. You can do the math. You can
It's
do
not
the
what we're talking about,
observation.
though. It's not what I'm talking
Okay.
about when we're talking
Well,
about.
but this is.
I love
I have to. I
relativism
just have to bring
in
this up.
physics.
So do I. It breaks my brain, but I love it. I just have to mention it because when we're talking about relativism, we might be talking about something like that. And then the Christian who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about comes along and says, "You think that everyone has their own truth?" And they're, "No, we don't. Shut up, you fool." That is not what anyone is saying. Either the Red Sox
Yes,
won.
at least one person.
Either
At
the
least
Red
one
Sox
person.
won the pennant or they didn't. We don't all get to have our facts that they did win. No, they didn't win. Shut up. They either won or they didn't win. And that's the fact. We are
But
not
like,
arguing for different
no, no,
truths.
no, no, no. Like, here's the thing, man. Uh, in sports, like the big thing now with transgender athletes competing with biological women, and people are going on CNN and saying there's no real difference, and those people are lying. They're lying. They're lying on national TV and they're saying there's no real difference. But there is a difference. It's a fact. But they're saying uh, it's our truth that, hey, because I got the surgery and I got the hormones going, then now I am just the same as those women who are biological women.
Yeah,
But that
hard
is
pass.
not true. That's moral relativism that he's talking about.
Okay,
That's
hard.
lying
Like I
to
said,
people.
hard pass. But I will.
Okay.
I
That's what
will.
we mean.
I will just. Well, okay. But to even paint that example onto every atheist
Not every atheist.
is
I would
absurd.
never do that.
It's
I
absolutely
treat
absurd. And
people as individuals.
what I said at
Everyone's
the
an
beginning of
individual.
this diatribe was that anyone who believes that everyone has a truth, who is actually some kind of some type of veritas relativist, they're fools. They're reality deniers, and I have absolutely nothing
But
to
they're
do
also
with such
but they're
fools.
relative. Like even if they're not doing anything wrong. Even if that's true, what you're saying, then their view of reality is telling them they're the person who sees the other person signing the contract first. So that's their view. Like
Well,
even
I
if
think
I
that
accept,
I think we could science that out, because the fact is science tells us that both are true. They signed it simultaneously and they didn't sign it simultaneously. Okay, and if that sounds crazy
and
to
it's like,
anyone
oh, that's
out
a
there,
contradiction, right? And it's like
watch a little bit of physics, study some Einstein. That is
like
absolutely
how
how the
people
universe works.
complain about paradoxes in Christianity all the time and say, oh, it's a contradiction. Anyway,
Okay, yeah, Christianity is not based on Einsteinian physics. I'm sorry, sir.
no, it's based on reality, the reality you described. And if that's the reality that it is, then why would it not also exist in the same? Like, do you have free will, or is God controlling you like a robot?
I'm a hard determinist, and that
No,
is also well known.
that's
But
not true.
we're look, we have practically introduced determinism in our first couple of shows about Calvinism. So I assure you that
Compatibilism. Yeah.
the show on determinism, compatibilism, libertarianism that we do is coming. This
Yeah,
year we do one just about every year.
and
So
like
that's
no
coming.
one is a libertarian because no one would willingly listen to 3 hours of this
They
talk.
do it, man.
Uh,
Have you ever watched Myth Vision? Love that guy.
what is that? No, never.
We are Myth Vision. You don't know the Myth Vision guy? He
No, no, never
does
heard
some
of him.
great shows, very long. Um,
Like, oh, Mike Winger. Let's talk about Mike Winger for a second.
do we?
The
Must we? I mean, we know.
well, because you say you hate him, and I think he's a like I don't agree with him, obviously,
No,
on a lot
no.
of things,
Well, look,
but he's a nice guy.
right.
Like,
That's why I hate him. He's smarmy.
wh-
He's smart.
nah,
He's falsely smarmy
you can't
in
say
a
that
way that
about someone you don't know in
okay.
person.
There's a famous academic who makes the rounds and all the Christians know, who's been on the show, and so I won't call his name. And I really enjoyed my time chatting with him, and I think that he is one of the worst examples of this false smarminess. He's worse than Winger. So look, say what
Wait,
you.
why wouldn't you say his name? Like,
I didn't. I like the guy. I mean, I don't. I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to
wait,
just
is he a
slander.
Christian?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh, okay.
I don't want to say something that would be slanderous to the guy. We had a conversation. You didn't have to have a conversation. We did,
But
but
you're saying he's too nice?
I think he is. He presents the air of being nicer and more agreeable than what he actually is.
Uh,
And I think it's applied intentionally or not. It has become a kind of a mechanism that he uses, and I just don't like that mechanism. And it doesn't matter whether it's a Christian or an atheist or whatever it is. If you're a dick, be a dick and be a good, convincing dick, and do that well, and make your point. But don't try to make your point by getting on my good side and making me think that you're a kind of person that you're not, just to manipulate me. I manipulate people straight up to their face. I'm manipulating you, sir. Let's wrestle. I'm still going to win. Don't try to sneak up on me with your
and
manipulation.
and there's a lot that can be said, I guess, maybe not on the air, about, I guess, how people handle situations that perhaps don't go like their way, and how they I guess perceive faults, right? And so like you would say there's an objectively right way of handling conflict. Like, like if someone bumps into you at the line at the grocery store, the response isn't to punch them in the face, right? It's like
It
even
depends
if
on
they
if
don't
they've got a. It depends on if they got a really punchable face.
even
Uh,
if they don't apologize, even if they don't apologize, the right response isn't to escalate. And I feel like a lot like what the internet breeds is escalation.
Yeah.
It's not de-escalation,
Right.
it's escalation. So
Right.
it's like if we were all sitting in a bar somewhere or in a, I don't know, stadium, and we're watching a football game or something, and my team scores, like on the internet, how I celebrate is to get in your face and scream like my team scored.
Right.
Yeah, I mean like
That
that.
is the only right way to celebrate. Otherwise, you're not really
Uh,
celebrating. I don't know what you're doing.
right. And that's not gonna, like, if the person you're doing that to, which 99% of the time is a complete stranger, they're not gonna take it like, oh, that's my body just ribbing on me. They're gonna take it as an act of aggression.
Okay, well, they're fools because that's just how sports works. Okay, people are sitting in the stadium right next to each other, and one person is pulling for one team, and one person is pulling for the other.
Have you
We don't
seen these
have.
videos of people fighting each other in the stands?
Yeah,
And they're not even,
no.
yeah, there's like, it's a whole
That's
subgenre now.
dumb. Look, I've been to games, and that's just not a thing. Because it's sports. We understand how sports works. Those of us who like sports enough to pay enough money to go to a game understands how it works. We have bought into that culture, and so it's okay when the person next to us cheers for the other team. We're okay with that. And if you're not okay with that, that shows that you really don't know jack shit about sports, and you shouldn't even be allowed in the stadium. I went
But
to
that's a culture thing. That's like the whole cannibalism thing. What if their neurons are telling them?
well, then they shouldn't go to games. All right. And so everyone else's neurons should tell them, okay, we're going to exclude this person and they are banned from games because we don't want them here. Have you ever been to a Yankees game?
No,
And so
never,
I went to,
never
me and
go.
my wife, we went to a Yankees game when I was there. The tickets were surprisingly cheap. I mean, we got some, some bad seats, but I mean, I think we paid something like $14. We bought them at some shop in Times Square, and we went, and it was great. Yankees won. Crack of the bat, roar of the crowd. It's great. Baseball is one of the most boring sports to watch on TV. It's great at the game. Fantastic. You have a hot dog that you paid too much for, and you got to pee all the time. But otherwise, it's great fun. So when we went, us and 40,000 of our closest friends, in the stadium, when the game's over, we are making our way to the subway. It's late, and everyone's trying to get home, and we had a couple of things to do. So we had to get to the subway to get to Penn Station, and then we had to get our train from Penn Station to get to where we lived in Jersey. So long trip for us. Bottom line, we had what felt like thousands of people in the terminal trying to get on the train. I've been in many crowds. This was one of the most packed crowds I've ever been in. It was just, to say it was wall to wall is understating it. Bodies pressed every part of our body. I'm pretty sure I was having sex with the guy in front of me at that point. I've never seen anything like it. You can't walk in that environment. It's a kind of a group waddle because no one's taking strides. You're just kind of a group. Move your shoulders a little bit, your hips, and move your feet a little bit. You're to say excuse me, for instance, if you step on someone's foot or if you bump them in the ribs, is stupid. It's ridiculous in that statement because that is simply the state of where you are. That is that's a kind of a culture, you see.
Yeah, but
And
if someone gets like, oh, it's like going to mosh pits in rock concerts or
yes,
whatever,
it would
and
probably
you're
be
like, you
like
go in there and you just get pushed around, and you're like, why are you pushing me around? But it's understood, right? Either prior,
right.
like even if you're in a crowded subway, yeah.
And even if you don't understand it prior, because this is the first time I was in that situation, and I learned the Yankees waddle, I guess. You learn it very quickly. Oh, this is the way this works. And that's fine. When we were in the subway, when we finally got on a train, there was a group of people who were very loud because, of course, they were, and they were kind of drunk, and that's just the way it goes. Oh, okay, we're loud and drunk here. And there's a guy who bent over and puked about two people away from us. And that's like, oh, yeah, okay, I guess you puke here. And you step over it when you get over and get off the bus. But there's a whole kind of culture involved. I don't even know why I started this story. There's a whole cultural thing involved. And so your question earlier was, if someone bumps you in the store, do you get mad at them? What is the right thing? And actually the right thing is to realize that no offense has taken place at all.
Yeah, but lots of people won't.
It's just where the culture, the culture of that situation is. And so the fact that you would take offense to it means that you're probably one that is the aberrant part of that culture. It's not the culture that's wrong. Look, we got to get out of here, man.
Yeah, we gotta wrap it up.
Will someone please challenge me on the whole cannibalism thing, though? I gotta ask. I'm very curious. I just want to leave that as a thought, because I thought that was one of the more interesting parts of our conversation.
If they make it to that part, because it's yours.
They made it. They made it. They're here now.
I feel like
they've written. Look, Brian I has written 3 posts by the time he gets here, and that's an understatement. So. What would be the right thing to do if you are an adventurer and you see a group of cannibals?
Well, under a secular framework, again, I'm just giving an answer.
I don't care, secular or religious. What is the thing to do? What is the goal you want to have? What are the steps you take to reach it?
Go home. Just go home.
Yeah,
just leave them alone. Right.
And for instance, I will throw into this. You remember a few years back that dude whose name I forgot, but I covered him on the show. There was this kind of primitive place out near Australia, I think. I don't think it was Aborigines or anything like that, but wherever it was, this primitive island, and they did not want evangelists coming in. And then this kid, he's like, I'm an evangelist. I'm a missionary. I'm going to go there and preach to him. And he goes there on the boat, and they shoot. They shoot at him. And nope, not the first time. They shoot at him, and he goes away, and then he comes back. Then they kill him. They killed him the second run.
You're laughing, man.
Yeah, I am laughing because that's a stupid way to die. He was a fool. He was, and the world is better off without that fool in it. I'm sorry.
If we all die anyway, then there's no such thing as a. I mean, like a billion years from now,
it is a stupid way to die.
Still gonna care?
Honestly, a stupid way to die.
Because think about it. Like there are dinosaurs that died from old age, and there are dinosaurs who fell off a cliff.
Right. Well, the dinosaurs that fell off a cliff were dumb. Okay.
Like it doesn't matter if there's nothing like after. It's just whatever.
You
die how you die.
The would-be lion trainers who die because they put the head in the lion's mouth. I'm sorry, that they were dumb. It was a stupid way to die. And so yes, I guffaw at your death. So
we're talking like me. I should be like the one saying that.
I would just say that in that case, for the Christian, because there wasn't a lot of nuanced discussion on that situation. We'll just throw that in the situation with the cannibals. If a culture, a state, a government has a law that says no evangelism, and if you evangelize, you're going to go to jail and bad things are going to happen to you, because we have a no evangelism law here. As a Christian, you feel this call to do missionary work. So do you go to the place and not evangelize? Because you just like the shakshuka? Do you go to the place and evangelize in the name of Jesus and break the law? Do you go to the place, evangelize, get thrown in jail, have bad things happen to you, and expect your government to send an army to get you and fix this human rights violation? What do you do if the rule is no evangelizing here, and you know that there are sinners who are going to lose their soul there. It's a similar situation to what do you do if you go and you see this society of cannibals. Um,
Not if you're an atheist, though. If you're an atheist and you're like, okay, all life. Again, I'm not saying this is you or anyone. I'm just thinking of a guy. I'm thinking of some specific guy, and he's like, this is the only life I've got. Um, we all came from single-celled organisms. The universe is going to a massive heat death. That's the trajectory, and then you stumble upon these cannibals, and that you can see they have little kids there, and they have women, and it's like it's a nice little society, but they eat people and they mistreat their women, and they don't even wash their hands before they eat. As an atheist who cares about survival for yourself, you'll just be like, okay, that's nice. That's their culture. I'm just going, wait, why is that so funny?
So these guys are munching on your spleen, and the thing you're upset
They
about
didn't
is
wash their hands.
you didn't even wash your hands.
You didn't even wash your hands while you were eating my insides.
Sorry.
How uncultured. How uncultured. No forks, no spoons.
For that, we should send an army.
They didn't even wash your hands. As an atheist, you just go home, man. Like, what are you doing?
No,
Like,
look, I just said my impulse is
just
very hawkish.
go
My impulse is
home.
to take an army and overtake the place
Leave
and
them
plant my
alone.
flag.
You'd be a hypocrite to do
I,
that.
I,
Because what's
I don't care
stopping?
if I would be a hypocrite. I'm just telling you
Yeah,
what my
that's the thing.
impulse
That's
is.
the problem.
I am
You
telling
don't
you, I
care.
don't know what the right thing is. I'm just telling you what my
Yeah.
impulse is right now. Mostly, I think what I would do, because I don't command an army,
Maybe
is
the culture is right.
I would turn around and say, "I'm sorry, I was just looking for the bathroom. I'm going." I would go and get on the first plane out of there.
Yeah, maybe eating human beings is the right thing to do.
No, I wouldn't say it's the right thing to do. I would
Wait,
say
how do you know that?
I'm not getting involved with that. And if you got a
Okay, well,
society
let the people.
if you
I
got
hope
a
the people just
closed
discuss it.
society, if you got a closed society of cannibals, that problem's going to take care of itself
It's
in
going
one
to solve
generation.
it.
It's
No,
one
God, really?
generation, and you can
That is,
say, "Man, I'm sorry about those kids." But that's
you're sorry about
one
those
small
kids?
village. Yeah, because they're going to get eaten
Wow.
first. You know they're going to get eaten.
But wouldn't you want? Oh man, this is so
So
bleak.
I'm probably gonna say, man, sorry, that is too bad. But we are one generation away from that problem being no longer a problem because
But
we're a
here's the thing.
society
Let's
of
say that
cannibals.
that closed society of cannibals gets some influence. Now they're the number one superpower in the world, and they tell people, "You, bro, we've
It
been
is
eating
simply
people."
impossible for a society
It's
of
not
cannibals
impossible.
to get. Yeah,
It
this
ain't.
is they can't do it.
Mm-mm.
You can't.
They can do it if they were
You
determined enough.
can't eat your way into power.
Eating other human beings? Yes, you can.
No,
Like, you
you
just be like,
can't.
"You're not."
You're not going to encounter enough people who will just kind of roll over for that. At some point, someone's going to send an army, and you're
And
not going.
thank God that's the case,
Which is
because imagine if humans were mostly cannibalistic, right? Like we know, like, human beings by nature are liars. Like, we tell lies, we tell cloaked lies, all kinds of lies, right? That's everyone. But then there's some people who eat other people. Like, can you imagine if, like, it was like 80% of human culture? It's like our culture is we eat other human
okay,
live
right? And
humans.
I'm saying that if that's the culture, your culture has about one generation to live. That's
Mm-mm.
it. You're
There's some that are like,
you're
no, there's
going
some cultures that have
extinct.
survived till today. So they've been around all along.
Okay, at some point, their culture is just going to be one morbidly obese man, and he's going to die of
No, you'd
diabetes.
have to
Just-
imagine that they know this, right? So they're like, we're only gonna eat 5 people this year or this week. It's not like they like go allow like a fast food cannibalism, you know? Like, let's go
So
by.
think about
Get
this.
some.
Even if you say that the only people that you can eat are the weak, these are the people who are slow enough or sick enough so that they can't get away. So at some point, just generically speaking, please don't take offense at sexism here. At some point, the women are not going to marry you and have children, and they're going to run.
No, they have different standards for marriage.
Because
No, they have different standards.
At some point, your wife is the only thing left to eat. And they're not going to, that society cannot flourish.
I think you underestimate just how sinful human beings are. I don't think, like they'll find a workaround around that. It'll be
maybe I underestimate human hunger. I'm hungry now. I'd like to eat my lunch. I'm not going to eat my wife. I'm not going to. It's just not going to happen. If I eat my wife, I got to make my own lunch, and that's not going to work.
But you and your wife are the last two people on the earth, and you have to survive
hunger.
Let's just die together. Let's die. Let's go.
Yes.
Okay. That's what you'll do.
That's what you would do too.
Right. That's what I would do. But because it's the right thing to do.
No, because I don't like spleen. I just don't.
If you liked spleen, it wouldn't be. You'd eat your wife. Sorry, honey, I'm hungry. Even if your wife was like you went into a trance and you were like she looked like fried chicken, and you're like, it's like you'd be like, no, you'd have to resist the temptation to eat your wife.
I gotta stop this.
Anyway, this is a good place to stop. Speaking of epistemic humility,
we should have stopped.
And I really hope the boards discuss the merits of why secularism is so bad even from a survivalist perspective of the human race. We'd be doomed. It's not feasible. It's not sustainable.
Would a good title be "The Last Obese Man on Earth"? I mean, I don't know.
That would get people clicking, or like "The Last Buffet" or something like that.
They didn't even wash their hands.
You're trying to be funny. But okay, really, I really have to go also.
This is how it always digresses. This is not on me. Folks,
you see, you're like, oh, evil Calvinist, da 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 da.
When I'm doing a show myself, it's well ordered. It's
30 minutes long.
This is not on me. So with that said, folks, until next time.
You should make this 2 parts, like 1.5.
It will be. We're going to come back and we're going to do the rest of this show next time.
This one for today.
It very much might be chopped up. Yeah. Okay. So until next time, I will see you in the comments. Bring your appetite.
And remember, I feel like I have to end on a better note than cannibalism. Remember to wash your hands. Epistemic humility is for everyone. Atheists are not exempt from that. Christians are not exempt from that. No one is. And when you're dealing with matters that have to do with your eternal soul, you had better have some epistemic humility and know things, not just guess, but just know fundamental things about who you are and who God is, and that's where the salvation lies. Not in trying to think your way to reality, but just trusting in God and knowing that everything's going to be okay at the end. Yeah, signing out, Mac Attack. I've been your host, surprisingly, this entire time. And thanks for listening.
He's the only one left standing, folks.
David's dead. Killed him.
He's such a little guy. You didn't think he had it in him.
Hey, I'm not little.
You are in my mind. You are in my reality.
I'm like 5'2" in your head.
About 5'2", and somehow I imagine that you're using a really powerful microphone, but your voice is very squeaky. Got some very powerful effects.
I would never use a microphone.
Okay. I don't even want
You
to
are
know you.
though. That's why your voice always booms better than
Listen
mine.
here. I am using no, you're right. There is no one left to hear this. I'm using a Neumann TLM-102 right now. I'm looking at a Neumann TLM-103. Anyone who knows about microphones is instantly envious of me. So I'm using my
Yeah,
cheaper
that's
of
why your voice comes off stronger,
it actually is,
and
because
I sound like I'm inside a bottle.
my voice is actually quite squeaky. I talk like this. You see, I turned the filter off there for a second. No, so I've been an audio nerd forever, my whole life, when I was in single digits age. And so there was a time when I was making, money. I've had periods when I've made money on and off. I've been a musician. I've done, the entertainment thing. And what I would mostly spend my money on, because I didn't have a car, were microphones and audio gear and things like that, for various reasons. I had a small studio, so I've done that, all that stuff. So I'm an audio gear nerd, and so even when you guys hear a show where the audio is trash, it's probably because I was either using one of my junk mics, because I also like taking cheap mics and trying to make something good and interesting out of them. Sometimes I'm using a good mic, but I'm experimenting, with some new technique that I'm trying. So ironically, being a semi-professional audio dude at this point, I often put out podcasts with crappy audio because I don't care enough when I'm doing these podcasts, and I like to use them as test beds to experiment with things. But I do, in fact, favor microphones that give me the voice of Baal.
I don't know. You don't even know if he had a voice, but yeah, you're kind of cheating, actually. You're putting a perception in people's minds that your voice is deeper than it actually is. And psychologically, people trust people who have deeper voices. Uh, but if you have a squeaky
You
voice,
think I don't know this?
oh, you already know that. Oh, of course you know it. Uh, if you have a squeaky voice, and people are like, you're lying. Like this, what's that guy's name? Like he was a presidential candidate. He was a good guy, but like his voice was just too squeaky. And
Dukakis?
uh, gosh, this is why I hate politics. It's just one guy after the other.
Yeah, look,
Oh,
squeaky.
yes, Jeb Bush. His voice is pretty weird.
Jeb
Not weird
Bush?
in a bad way. Jeb.
Yeah, Jeb. I don't remember his voice being
It's
off-putting.
not squeaky like that, but like it's very high pitched. Like when he talks, he's always like he sounds like he's not sure of himself. And 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 that's how Trump was able to bully him, because like Trump would be like, or he has his deep intonation and he's able to like bully people and sound like he's like an expert, even though half the stuff he says are lies.
I mean,
Um,
Trump is a media guy, though. I mean, he knows how to talk to a camera. He knows
yes,
how to make a speech. He knows how to, do the entertaining thing, and he's very charismatic. There goes that word again. And so he has all of the ingredients to, just start a big church. And, once again, when it comes to he was an entertainer. He was
yeah.
in front of
And
a camera all of his life, and I even enjoyed his work as an entertainer. So,
and
that
the other
that does
guys
give an
were
advantage.
yeah, the other guys, the other Republican candidates were just boring cookie cutter guys. They're like, oh, listen to my policies. This is what I'm gonna do. Maybe I'll work with the Democrats and then we'll get this done. And it's like this is boring because they don't even sound sure. Whereas Trump sounded like we're gonna build a wall. He never built it. But
Doesn't
the way he
matter.
said it, yeah, the way he said it was like, oh wow, he really is gonna build a wall.
Makes you root for him, though. Build that wall. Build
Yeah,
that
people
wall.
were chanting that, or
Yeah.
lock her up, lock
Lock him
her up.
right.
Like he was like a pro wrestling guy from the 80s. All these chants.
I mean, love
Um,
him or hate him, you got it. Man, he's very good at it.
yeah,
He-
getting people like riled up, and And
In the same way, I think that this person is very good at it, and I hope that I encounter him again. We'll see more of his speech. I think he's full of it, but
which person?
this person that is on the screen that we've actually been talking about today, Jonathan. You say I think he's full of it, but he's very good at it. His sermon gets better as it goes on. So look,
He's
I'm out of
not
here.
preaching a sermon. All right, yeah, let's
I'm gonna
end
hit
it here.
Have we said I'm out? I'm out. Okay.
He's-
Oh, wait a minute. That didn't do it either. This concludes part 2. Part 3 will be available soon.